Okay.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting. Sorry.
Okay, now I would like to call this meeting of the Audit and Finance Committee to order. Robert, would you please do a roll call?
Yes. Chair Walker,
Here?
Vice Chair Slee. Member Patil, excused. Member Skolnick,
Here.
Member Hill.
Here.
Mayor is excused, and our council liaison Tegoya should be joining us shortly.
Okay, thank you. Are there any public comments? We did have Steve Berkeley on, but I don't see him now. Did he go off? He's still there. Okay. Welcome, Steve, to our meeting. Glad you could join us.
Yes, thank you.
Are you back from your world traveling now?
Yeah, for a little while.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you continue to care about this committee. Appreciate it.
You're welcome too.
So any public comments? If not, let's move to the first agenda item, review and approval of the committee minutes for our May 31 meeting. Does anybody have any comments or questions? If not, I move to approve those minutes as written. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Our next job is to select a chair and vice chair of this committee for the year that's just started. And if there's anyone who would like to step up and be chair, I would certainly welcome that. But I am also willing to continue as chair, and I actually kind of like it. So I guess it's the power. But seriously, is there anyone else who would like to take a turn at being chair? All right. Was there someone who would like to nominate me as chair? I don't want to nominate myself.
I'll second the nomination.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? My husband. No. All right, motion carries. We have a chair. And for vice chair, as you know, Wally Sleeth has been vice chair at least for a couple of years, I believe. And I'm sorry he's not here now. I wanted to ask him in person if he wanted to continue that position. I did reach out to him via email and was unable to get a response. So I don't know what his position is, but I don't think he would be upset if we released him from his vice chair duties and appointed a new vice chair. And I have asked Tom Hill if he would be willing to step up to the vice chair position, and he agreed if nominated, he would serve. So I would like to nominate Tom Hill to serve as vice chair of this committee. Do I have a second?
Second that.
All in favor? You can vote for yourself. It's okay. Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Welcome, Tom. And so that takes care of that item. That'll show Wally what happens when he doesn't show up to the meeting.
You should, you got appointed.
Or, or not being in attendance, you get nominated anyway.
Yeah, it's either way.
Yeah.
You just have no way to protect yourself
Right.
regardless which way. So item number 3 is discussion of the fiscal 23 preliminary audit and scope. We have Grace Young from Mays and Associates here to walk us through that. And I hope you all had a chance to read the materials that she sent us. So Grace, take it away.
Oh, good afternoon, Chair, and congratulations, and committee members. Thank you for having me here today. So for FY23, we completed our interim audit back in June. The audit has very smoothly, and thank you for the finance led by the finance director Robert to provide full cooperation to us. For the interim audit, we do not have any particular finding. The only suggestion we have for the finance is to clean up the outstanding checklist, outstanding checks for over 1 year. So which is in the, we communicate with the Robert, and this is on, being ongoing under the,
When you say outstanding checks, could you explain, you're talking about checks that Atherton has written or checks written to us?
Robert, do you want to explain?
Checks that we've written.
That we've written?
That we've through AP process have written. And so there's some that are still, they haven't cleared our bank. So meaning
So
the
we sent
vendor
them out, but the
Correct.
recipient hasn't cashed it.
correct.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
what we're gonna do is we're gonna void the current outstanding check and then reissue it to the vendor and contact the vendor and verify. And there's a couple employees that we've issued the check and haven't.
Really?
On the police department side. So, you know, some reimbursements that haven't done that. So we'll clean that
Okay,
up.
well, that strikes me more as their problem than ours.
Correct, correct. But you know, in reconciling the bank,
Sure.
those are
Sure.
still outstanding. And then so the auditor, you know, at the request of them, they mentioned that anything older than a year.
Great. Okay, thanks. Grace, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so our final phase of the audit will start in October. And for this year, our plan is to finalize everything by December and issue the report by then, if all goes well. Yeah, other than that, I do not have any particular things to report other than this SAS 114 communication, which require auditor to communicate with you, which all the detail has been laid out in our SAS 114 letters. It's including the auditor's responsibility, the audit scope, and then some fraud-related questions that we would like to ask you. The question is laid out there. If you review, if you have any suggestion or any question, you can always my contact is within the letter. You can always reach out to me if you have any suggestion, any audit areas you would like to us to focus on. You can always reach out to me anytime through email or phone call.
Thank you, Grace. So I have a couple of process questions for both you and Robert. One is, I see that we entered into the engagement letter with you, I believe in April, which is wonderful, and I read it. I'm just have a question because most of my experience has been in the both for-profit and nonprofit corporation world. And in those worlds, the audit committee has the responsibility for hiring and firing the outside auditors. And so I'm just wondering why it is that we're not involved in the process for the town of Atherton.
The city council does not provide any of its committees aside from the planning commission, which is governed by state law as well as local law, the authority to hire, fire, direct, spend money, or any of those things. So with respect to engaging the auditor, if the town were to do a open recruitment process for an auditing firm, we would engage probably a subcommittee of the finance committee to assist in that interview round. With Mays and Associates, we've been using them for a number of years. And they, I think recently in the last couple of years, changed their team.
Mhm.
And we do that every few years just to make sure that that process
Partner rotation, yeah.
happens. But we haven't done an open recruitment or engagement RFP for auditing services in 8 years at least. It's been a while.
So I totally understand that we don't have the authority to approve or disapprove of anything, but we do have the authority to make recommendations to the council. And I'm just wondering if it would be too much trouble to let the audit and finance committee look at the draft engagement letter and respond with either a recommendation for approval or any comments that we might have.
On the
Steer.
engagement letter,
The engagement letter, yes.
not the solicitation for a firm.
No, the engagement letter, it's just a question. Again, in the for-profit, nonprofit
Yeah.
world, that happens.
Robert,
On the engagement letter, it explains the process of what they'll do as far as the requirement under the GASB. They'll do the audit compliance and testing. So the engagement letter just outlines their process and what they will look at, what the opinion process will be. Internal controls as part of that engagement. It's just all encompassing of as they're engaged on the audit, they will.
But I think I want to drill down a little bit. Do I make sure what process you want to be engaged in? Is it selection of the auditor or selection of things that you think the auditor needs to pay attention to?
All of the above.
So selection of the auditor is the RFP process, and that the finance committee is involved as part of a
Got it.
interview process for selection of the auditor. But the engagement letter, as Robert indicated, just outlines what they've got to do per GASB. If there's something in specific that they're missing, this is an opportunity to actually advise Grace of any concerns or issues that the finance committee may be aware of. And in fact, on page
Page 3 of
4, she's actually asking those sorts of questions.
Right, I know, I guess in my world, I always figure it's better to get in on the front end if there are any issues, instead of coming in 3 months after it's been signed and saying, oh, what's this about? So it's just a process question.
Here.
And the related
yeah,
question,
and-
sorry?
Yes, Sharon. So the engagement letter is by itself, the content is a pretty standard universal content. But if you have any question regarding certain paragraph or certain standards that detail in the letter, by all means, let me know. I can
Absolutely,
always get back to you.
absolutely. Yeah, again, these are just process questions.
But
But
the
related-
engagement letter is the contract.
Of course it
essentially.
is.
And so, yeah, I've been surprised too, because audit and finance committees usually, that's their main responsibility is selection of the auditors and receiving of the audit report. So it seems like whenever it's being discussed before it's signed, it ought to be run by the finance committee.
Well, the engagement, they're already under contract before we get
Right.
the engagement letter.
correct.
So if it's the selection of the auditing firm process, the finance committee, like I said, is involved in that process as a general rule for the RFP, but if
But
it's-
they're not technically engaged for a particular audit until you get the engagement letter and sign it, because they can't just do it without an engagement letter.
I don't sign anything as part of that.
So do they have like a multi-year contract? Is that what
Correct.
you're saying?
Correct. And the
Yeah.
engagement letter is just saying we're starting the 23-24 audit.
Okay.
Well, it is signed by the acting city manager. I think it's Robert Barone.
That they're starting the audit, but the audit, they're already under contract
To do.
So it's, yeah. So when does that contract expire?
In 3 years.
Yeah, it's a multi-year contract.
And does the overarching contract, does that set forth the fees? Because the other thing that's very important about an engagement letter year by year is what the fees are, whether they've gone up a lot or what. Because like my second question was, they're projecting $73,360 charged for the audit this year. What was the charge this past year?
It was
It's the same.
the same,
Exactly the same.
correct.
Okay, so then that is also set forth in the overarching agreement.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Could I ask that you send me a copy of that so I can put it in my files and save you some future questions?
Absolutely. And like I
Okay.
said, that's part of a public process that the finance committee is.
Got it.
involved in.
But I see your point. Once a contract, multi-year contract is signed, then it is a sort of a formality.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing if I read through the long-term contract, there will be some provisions where they could terminate us or we could terminate them. So I just want to understand exactly what the terms are. Wearing my lawyer hat.
Yeah.
And the third question I had is just for my own information. Has Atherton ever had to do a single audit?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Previous, I think probably maybe 10 years ago they've had, but we will do one when we receive federal funds. So
Any federal funds or there's
that's
a
the
threshold, right?
It's in the letter threshold.
Mhm.
Anything
Okay.
over 500,000.
You know, I had one nonprofit that was just this far from having to do a single audit after a bunch of the governmental, the PPPs got 2 loans and some other grants. It's like,
So this is through the chair, one question for Robert and Grace. Will the ARPA funds trigger a single audit?
and that's expected when?
For
This year?
this fiscal 23 or 4.
23, 24.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that there are provisions in our overarching contract that allow them to charge more if they have to do a single audit. Actually, I think they mentioned it in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Okay. I know it can cost a lot more.
Yeah.
Not fun.
Well, correct. And the single audit's just, they're already doing the audit. The single audit's just following what the federal guide. It's just the extra.
No, I understand. Okay. Those were my questions on oh no, I had one other question, which I should know the answer to, but it's in the compilation attachments, the engagement letter, page 13 to 16. And we talk about the special district. Which special district is that?
That's the Atherton channel.
Atherton channel. Okay. Thank you. I'll get it straight one of these years. Yeah. Are there any other questions or comments?
I had a question, Grace, about, it's page 3, I guess, of what the engagement letter, page 3 of the longest letter, the audit procedures, internal control at the bottom. So you say that you will not render an opinion on internal controls. You also say that about in the next paragraph about a single audit. Is that the norm for municipalities? That there's no opinion on internal controls?
Oh, yes, it's standard. This is actually the engagement letter is not just Maze as an auditor specific. It's in the language itself. It's universal for any municipal auditors. So
Okay.
there are 2 different things. Being a financial auditor, we take the internal control into consideration to design our audit procedures. It's different from an auditor that's doing the internal control auditing that to express an opinion of the effectiveness of the internal control. That's a different type of report, which is called SSAE 16. They have SOC 1, SOC 1, and SOC 2 type of report. That's that particular. Their audit procedures different to express the opinion of the effectiveness of the internal control versus our financial auditor. Our focus is on making sure the financial statement is stated materially correct without material misstatements.
Okay.
So
I'm
fundamentally different type of auditor.
I'm quite familiar with that because there's a bifurcation in the for-profit and nonprofit world also, but in the for-profit world, at least when Sarbanes-Oxley came out, if you cross a certain threshold, you had to have an internal control audit. And in my experience, it was always done by the regular auditors, not by a separate firm. So what I need to understand is what is the threshold after which municipalities need an audit of internal controls?
There's no such requirement for the municipal entity yet. Yes, Chair, and you're right. For SOC 1, SOC 2 audit is very common for large private organization or public organization, like most of the big one, the public company, they usually have those type of report. And but for the municipal, there's no such threshold or requirement there. So
how many municipalities get an internal controls audit, even though it's not required?
So I am not aware of municipal entities getting SOC 1, SOC 2 type of audit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I had one other general question. So I compared this engagement letter with the one for last year. So there's a number of additions. Some are just words and phrases. There's several paragraphs that have been added. And do any of these additions constitute a significant change from last year?
No, those
Okay.
are just very standard. Every year, yeah, for the engagement letter, every year there are some minor edits every year. So it's just standard language, but in terms of engagement, there's really there's no impact on town's engagement.
Or what Atherton is responsible for versus you, or,
Right,
okay,
right.
great. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Good questions, comments? Okay, well, I think I got all mine answered. So, Grace, is that all you want to do today? If we covered everything you'd like to cover?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have my thing on. Okay, well, thank you very much for zooming in, and we look forward to talking to you in the future about the 2023 audit. Sorry,
Thank you.
George?
Through the chair, there are 4 questions
Oh,
on page 3.
my bad.
At the beginning that I just want to make sure that the.
Absolutely. I saw them when I was reading it. Page 3, communicating the audit process,
Yes.
the first letter. Yeah. I went through those and my answer to all of them were no.
Mine
Hey.
also.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks, George.
Yeah. As I mentioned, there's my contact information in the page 4. If you think of anything or have any suggestion for audit, feel free to contact me anytime.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
You
Grace.
too.
Good afternoon.
Okay, so I guess I can still, there's one thing that I meant to ask about the process, which of course I wrote in a different place, so I forgot to ask it. And I mentioned this, I think, offline to you, Robert. It seemed that this year, and I know some things were different this year for a bunch of reasons beyond our control, and that's not an issue. I'm wondering if next year it would be possible, once you receive the first draft of the audited financials from Mays and Associates for fiscal 2023, can we please circulate it to the audit committee so we can get involved at the front end and review it and ask questions which might end up shaping the final version of it? Because as it is now, we get it months after it's been signed off on.
Sure. I mean, as far as changing, you want to change the statements or?
Well, my experience, I've worked with a lot of certified public accountants and very high powered firms, and there's almost always something that deserves question and sometimes change. Okay, it's not always, doesn't always come out perfect on the first draft.
Yeah, I can do that.
That'd be great. Thank you. So now it's time to item 4. We need to look at dates for our finance committee meetings for the upcoming fiscal year. Robert, you want to take that away?
Yeah, this is just to establish our meeting schedule for 23-24 fiscal year. We meet every other second Tuesday of every other month. This is just to establish our meeting schedule. And they will be noted as set meetings. Once the schedule is set, any changes in the dates or times of meetings will be established, maybe made by a majority of the vote of the committee, and will be later listed as a special meeting. So we're just reviewing our estimated or calendar meetings for this upcoming fiscal year. September 12th, November 14th of 23, January 9th of 2024, March 12th, May 14th, and July 9th of 2024 would be our regular scheduled meetings following the second Tuesday of the month. Needs to review these. Staff has one request that the regularly scheduled meeting of September 12th be moved to September 19th, which is Tuesday. And there is also potential joint budget study sessions with the council on Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024, and Wednesday, May 1st, 2024.
And those joint budget study, those typically start at 4? Is that right?
Typically at 4, but there could be some circumstances where they may start at 3.
Okay, I just want to get an idea where to stick it on my calendar.
Did you say April 3rd and May 1st?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's in the text. Well, those look good to me. And it's my understanding that the reason we're postponing our September 12 to the following week is because there's a special council meeting for the 100-year anniversary on the 12th. Is that, and I'm sure staff will be quite busy with that. Or maybe staff's on vacation, but whatever it is.
Yes.
I remember seeing that now. Okay, well, those look good to me. Does anybody here from the committee have any problems with those dates that they know of?
No,
Okay, a move to approve the meeting schedule. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. It passes unanimously. And wow. This could be the shortest audit and finance committee meeting ever. Is there any other business to be brought before the meeting that can legally be brought before the meeting? Always difficult with these rules. If not, do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Kate. Second?
I'll second
All
it.
right, all in favor? Aye.
Wait a minute.
Oh.
Steve Griffin's got a.
Oh, do you have a comment? Sorry.
Yeah, I
Lisa.
don't know that it relates to audit and finance, but I wondered if, is there a committee or who handles cybersecurity?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to it, George.
You're talking about internal controls, and that's
Sure.
the theme in our firm.
There is no committee per se that handles that, but the town does have a consultant team that manages our cybersecurity efforts as well.
Have they done any penetration testing or any kind of things like that, or is it on the agenda at all?
They have, maybe Anthony can report on that a bit, just as an informational thing.
Okay.
Yes, they have. We actually have some regularly running cybersecurity programs that help us with the penetration testing, and we have a cybersecurity system in place where we get regular reports related to threats, viruses, things of that nature, and we put a lot of those things into place over the last year and a half, 2 years.
Okay.
And we also do annual training for staff, council members, and it's open for other people related to how we can mitigate and manage, threats at the staff level for, being mindful of emails and being mindful of not opening certain documents. We also put a couple of other practices into place with regard to how people access email systems, two-factor authentication, things of that nature to help prevent, the risk and threat of cyber related attacks.
It's a particularly, I view it as kind of part of finance because because finance is so vulnerable to those kinds of attacks. So I'd be happy at some point to know once I'm more involved, know more about it.
No, thank you for that question, Mr. Brinkley. And just to touch base and add to what Anthony mentioned, also through the audit, that one of the testing is with the cybersecurity with our audit team and our IT team. So they do the questions, they do the verifications that for vulnerabilities and testing. So that's also done as well.
Yeah, good. Yes, what we've done, without trying to make quite the comparison, has gone through this thing called a NIST review that reviews your systems. And then not only do we have an internal firm that handles our IT, but we have a separate independent firm that does penetration testing that nobody else knows about. So we try to expel those vulnerabilities whenever we can, because it can really pose a problem. And then we have procedures in place for if we are threatened and they make their way through, how do we notify, how do we contain, and how do we ensure those things. So I'm not sure that the Audit and Finance Committee wants to take on part of that as an overseer, but it may be an appropriate role.
Well, we make a presentation annually to the city council related to cybersecurity activities. We also go through a NIST review. We've done it at least once in my time here in response to the San Mateo County grand jury report that came out, and I'd be happy to share some of that with you. It's all public documents to take a look at, what practices and policies we have in place. And to your point about that third-party administrator that does regular kind of penetration testing, we have one of those in place as well that we pay an annual fee, and they'll conduct remote attacks to, evaluate our vulnerabilities, to Robert's point.
Great. I mean, I'd like to see something, but I don't need to at this point. I'm not an official member. I'm an outside member, but once
At the very least, I could send something to Robert that's went to council before to kind of, it provides a pretty thorough review, and we have a PowerPoint that kind of reviews some of that. And this is stuff that we put together that's available to the public, because to your point, we don't want to give our playbook.
No,
in
I
general.
know, I totally understand that. I mean, we're an SEC registered firm, and they want to ask us that kind of information too and make it public. We don't want to either. But I'm not so much trying to test what's going on as much as there's value to be added by members of the council, members of the committee that have, like me, that have a tremendous amount of experience in that area. So when the time comes, I'll take a peek. Then maybe I could help.
Yeah,
That's
no,
what I'm here for, really, help.
I think we'd be open to that, and I'll talk to Robert, and maybe at some point later this year we can even ask our IT manager to attend one of these meetings and give a few minute overview about what the town does more specifically, with maybe a little more detail than I'm able to.
Yeah, no, I understand, and you'd want to keep it as confidential as possible. I'm not sure that it would be a good open forum item because of security.
Certainly. I mean, a broad overview about our plans and our practices without, too much detail. The same type of presentation that we've done for city council.
Okay,
So
great.
I can talk to Robert, and we can get with Ann and talk
That's
about
great.
that.
Thank you. Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. We always like to make use of everybody's expertise as much as we can. There's one thing that I accidentally skipped over, but I did want to mention briefly: future agenda topics. Two things. First of all, does any member of the committee have a suggestion for a future agenda topic that, that may or may not otherwise find its way onto our agenda? And my related question is to you, Robert, which is, it would be really great if about a week before a meeting, if you could just send out to the committee your draft, because I think you have a pretty set schedule of what we do when. If you could send out a draft of the agenda, it doesn't have to have all the fancy, technical mumbo jumbo, just the items that you think we're going to do at that meeting. And that would give folks on the committee a chance, if there's a particular issue that's arisen that they'd like to put on the agenda, then it would actually give them an opportunity to put it on before it's circulated to public, after which time we can't change it, right? That would be great. Okay, now are we ready to adjourn? Sorry, I jumped the gun there. Okay, I move that we adjourn. Do I have a second? Thank you, Kate. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned at 2:30.